We're here today with Keith Ferguson, designer of Santa's Workshop.
Welcome to Design Diary, the podcast where you get to look inside my board game design notebook as well as what's going on inside my head. We look at a new word each day from the sense of mechanics, tone, theme, or inspiration for a full game. Today's word is
Anachronism. An error in chronology, especially a chronological misplacing of a person, place, person, events, or customs in regard to each other, a person or thing that is chronologically out of place, especially one from a former age that is incongruous in the present, or the stated condition of being chronologically out of order or out of place. That was a hard one to spit out. I assume it's just as hard to design, so let's hear what you got.
So I thought about this for a little while, and I was thinking of time travel games, and I know there's a couple of those. There's Time Stories and some other time travel games. But then I thought about a short story that I read way back in high school, which was longer ago than I'd care to admit, speaking of anachronisms. An old Mark Twain story called A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
Okay.
So I thought that might be a cool theme. And in fact, to get away from just this particular word for a second, I was thinking Mark Twain works must be in the public domain at this point, and they are.
Oh, nice.
And I was wondering if many people had designed games around those, and I couldn't find any, but I did find in Board Game Geek, I know I'm going on a little tangent there, that there is a game in there from 1891, designed by Mark Twain.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
What is it called?
Mark Twain's Memory Builder. A game designed to help players retain important dates and facts from throughout history. Points are awarded by what type of fact is given and so on. So this is a game designed by Mark Twain. So that's where my path led me when you gave me anachronism. So
what you need to do is just release this today, and it is an anachronism. It's a game from 1891.
Well, that's exactly right. And I did, like I said, I didn't find much else with Mark. Like I looked up, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer, and there are games based on them, but they're from like the 1930s, and so I'm sure they're awful by today's standards. But it was sort of an interesting little path that I went down.
That's pretty cool. I'm looking at that memory builder now, and it's like a ballot card almost.
Right, yeah, the one picture they have of it, right? And there's 0 ratings and 0 comments. But anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting.
I love thinking about weird formats of games, and we do the wallet games. I was just talking to somebody who designed one of the Nestor games, which are like on little mouse pads, but ballot games where you sit here and like punch with a hole punch, and it's likely only playable once unless it's a legacy.
It's the new roll and write. You just pack it with a pad, right? Pack it with a pad full of things.
That's amazing. So I thought about this a little bit, and what I came up with was, and it was just very just general and basic, but think about it as like a deck of playing cards, and one of them is removed. And that one being removed is the person or thing that was removed from its time and brought to another time. And could be one of those things where the card is hidden and everyone's trying to kind of work around the deck and kind of figure out what it is through deduction. But I thought about even better was just like you have to use the deck to bring that one back, and then you kind of win the game once that card is saved and brought back in. And I have no idea how it would work or anything like that, but the idea I had was that if it was a full deck of 50 cards or 60, 70 cards, it's different every time because of the way that one behaves outside of its timeline.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's basically as far as I got.
So I'm thinking that would almost be the reverse. So there's a ton of games, right, where you get combos, you get card A and card B, and you put them together and they do some effect. But this might be one where you pull a card out, and the fact that it's missing affects how all the other cards work.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
And then somehow going on your theme, you have to rescue that card, or however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, I mean everything can have some sort of behavior based off of what's missing. I mean, I guess it's hard to do that for a full deck of cards like uniquely, but if it has a certain suit, for example, like they all behave a certain way, and there could be another wrinkle to it that takes it to a more detailed level and complex level than just the suit.
Sure.
But yeah, that's kind of where I got, and
that's neat.
I wanted to. Those games where you're just trying to figure out what it is. I wanted that second part of not only do you figure out what it is, then you got to figure out how to bring it back based off of what card and what type it was.
Now, do you think this is a cooperative, or are you trying to be the person that gets the card back?
Oh, that's interesting.
Like you're all racing to be the first one to get the card back.
See, I've been exploring this really dumb idea of cooperative then competitive games, or competitive then cooperative. So it's like competitively you're trying to find it, and then cooperatively you're trying to return it. I don't know. Do you know of any games that do that?
I mean,
I've been like thinking about it every day lately.
I don't know in quite that order. I know, I hate to give him any credit here, but TC Petty's Viva Java, right, is
it's all over the place. Yeah.
Every round you team up with some of the other players, and you're cooperative for that round. But overall, it's a competitive game.
Yeah, that's a lot more fluid in the way it goes. It kind of goes from cooperative to competitive, at least in the different phases and all.
Right.
That's neat. I get stuck on this. Well, it has to be one way and then stop and then switch, which is probably not the best.
It's an I can't think of anything that does that. So it could be new and unique.
Yeah. Which,
as we find out when we're pitching games to publishers, they're looking for new and unique ideas. So there you go.
That's true.
So I want to go back real quick because I did think a little bit more about specifically the Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. I did. It's been years since I've read the story, but I brushed up on good old Wikipedia. And for those that aren't familiar with the story, it's set in the late 1800s when Mark Twain was alive. So in his modern era, there was a Connecticut guy who got bonked on the head or something, and he woke up in King Arthur's Court. And so he lived many years back then, and his whole thing was he could bring modern technology, knew how to create modern technology, and solved problems for King Arthur, and sort of became King Arthur's right-hand guy, much to the consternation of many of the Knights of the Round Table and Merlin. So
neat.
They were out to get him, so to speak, and cause his downfall. And eventually what happened? Merlin ended up casting a spell on him that put him to sleep for 1,300 years, and he woke back up in Connecticut, I guess. So my idea was this would be an asymmetric game, 1 versus 3 or however many players are. I didn't really think about how many the total players were. One person is and I forget his name. I guess I should go back and look. The Connecticut Yankee.
The Connecticut Yankee.
He has a name. I can't find it right now. Oh, Hank. Hank is his name.
Okay.
So one person would be Hank, and that person would have access to modern, quote unquote, technology. I don't know if you'd still want to call modern being the late 1800s. And then the other players are working together. Maybe I hadn't really thought this through to bring down Hank, and they're all Knights of the Round Table, or maybe one person's Merlin. Maybe it's all asymmetric, and Merlin has certain powers, the other knights have different powers. But they're working together to bring down Hank because he's got such an advantage with modern technology. So that's sort of.
I'm fascinated by like how modern technology would work in an old time, because with things like batteries, eventually they're going to run out. So there's a timer. What was it?
I was just saying, remember, his modern is still like 1880. So
yeah,
I don't think he had batteries, but he's got a gun. He figured out gunpowder and all that kind of stuff.
But if he runs out of gunpowder,
Yeah, the wiki article didn't go into a whole lot. I mean, he helped cure people because he had some knowledge of medicine, and so he gained support of a lot of the common people, and then he put them to work in essentially what I think was 1880s style factories. He had the production lines going. I'm sure the story went into much more detail. The wiki article sort of just glosses over it. It says he fortified himself with minefield, electric wire, and Gatling guns. So he did. I'm not sure how much detail Mark Twain went into, but anyway,
spoilers. Does he survive it?
Yeah, spoiler alert for a 140-year-old story is he gets trapped in a cave. He's stabbed, but then he's not seriously wounded. But then Merlin finds him and casts a spell over him, putting him to sleep for 1,300 years. So he wakes back up, back in 1880s or 1890s Connecticut, I guess.
I guess it's different when you have a magician back then.
Yeah.
That does change things a little bit.
Yep. So I don't know. That was my rough idea. One person's very asymmetric than the other three.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really didn't think it through too much. Is it just Hank wins, or the other three win, or do the other three? Is there a first amongst equals there? They win, but one of them really wins. I don't know. So, but that's really what I thought of, and then it led me down the whole Mark Twain path.
And found that ballad of a game.
Found that ballad game, and I figure, there's probably lots of Mark Twain stories that are public domain that people could run with.
That's cool. That's really. I love finding those like old stories that are just they're unmatched. Like there's nothing like that right now. So
right,
and then just running with it. It's fun, and it's public domain, so you don't even have to like be inspired by it. You can simply just use it.
Yep. I'm actually a new design I'm working on right now. I went to the old public domain. I'm trying to work on that. So
that's fun. That's one of the. I was going to do a public domain contest where you had to use like public domain art and some other, public domain stories and things like that. But I never wound up doing it.
Well, so too many ideas, too little time, right?
Exactly. That should be the name of this podcast. So, I want to. Speaking of names, I was told to bring this up. And I was told to call you Kurt through Ben Beagle. And I was just like, you got to explain to me why, because I know I heard this and I didn't recall why. So I want you to tell people why.
All right, sure.
I'm sorry if this is bringing up bad memories.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm leaving the podcast. Goodbye. No.
See you, Kurt.
No, it's a funny story. So I had, let's see, it's June now, 2018. If anybody's listening in the far future. So my first game, Santa's Workshop, was released about 6 months ago in December of 2017. And it was getting some good reviews. One reviewer had an online reviewer. Who was it? I'm blanking on who it was. But anyway, in the article, the Opinionated Gamer, and I don't remember his name. But he had a fairly decent review of the game. But at the beginning, he said Santa's Workshop by Keith Ferguson. And so I just tweeted at him and I said, "Hey, appreciate the nice review. Just one note, my name's Keith, not Kurt." And he responded and said, "Oh, my apologies, I'll change it." And he did. However, much to my ongoing consternation,